Welcome to the Feminine Truth Podcast with Mary Miranda, a place where you can reconnect with your wild, cyclical, and fierce truth. I am Mary Miranda, a mentor, guide, healer, and intuitive coach. I guide women on a journey of remembrance, reconnection, and embodiment of their inner feminine truth. Join me each week to tap into raw, unedited, and unfiltered sacred conversations to help women tap into their inner feminine truth to become bold, unshakable, and apologetic in who they truly are. Let's jump into today's sacred conversation. Welcome to another episode of the Feminine Truth Podcast with your host, Mary Miranda. Today, we have a returning guest, Melissa. She was here with us 2 years ago on episode 6. Melissa, welcome back to the podcast. How are you?
Hi, I'm so excited. I have like the chills right now. I can't believe it. It's been 2 years. So much
It's
has happened since then.
Yes, I bet a lot has happened. Your growth and evolution, your transition, you're in a completely different place right now at all levels. So let us know what has been happening.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay. I love this so much. So thank you so much, Mary, for, just being the light that you are, showing up as you are. And I'm elated because I feel like you and I are so alike yet so different, yet we have so many of the same experiences. And just always chatting with you and having conversations with you, I always feel so like full. So thank you so much, and I'm so elated to be back, so thank you. But oh my gosh, so much has happened in the last 2 years. If
Yes.
you go back to listen to who I was 2 years ago, I am definitely a higher self version than who I was, but I'm also so proud of who I was back then and what I have become, like I am someone who speaks so highly of, the shifts and the changes, but living in the present through it all, instead of just focusing on who you are wanting to be, but being in the present moment as you're shifting and changing and elevating yourself. Because I feel like in today's society, we're always talking about evolution and how important it is for you to continue growing as a person, et cetera, et cetera. But sometimes we miss the mark on our presence and like kind of really honing in who we are today, right? Because today of who we are, we're enough. We are worthy as we are. We're deserving as we are today, not when you are going to get to the end of the line. And sometimes at the end of the line, you're human, so you want more of it. You want whatever is that you wanted, you want more of that. You want a refinement of that. So my last 2 years, it has been that, and I have been supported by so many identities through it all. And I have unapologetically shown up through them all in the online space, in my Instagram, in my Facebook, through my business, like 2 years ago, I had my fitness business. Now it's no longer a fitness business, but it's more of a catalyst to energetics of like the feminine, the masculine. I have now honed in to like what feels like a warm blanket just like cuddling me, and just like it feels so good. It feels like totally like home, and it's like the one energy and the one woman. And because of all the different past versions of me and the inevitable evolution that I have created through presence on every single day and like unapologetically showing up through it, I have come to where I am now, and I feel so much more at home than I have ever been. And it feels so interesting because it's like, okay, Melissa, you have done so many evolutions. You are a 3-6, so you've lived many lifetimes. So like, is it gonna change again? Is it gonna shift? And I'm like, I can't say it won't. I can't say it won't. But I also feel like this really just feels like the truest homecoming that I've ever had. So yeah, so it's been awesome.
It's been so last time we talked about you had like this slay movement. It felt like the
Yes.
energy behind it felt very fiery, very feisty, very bold.
Yes.
It still is, but now there's like a softening. and a
Yes, there
surrender
was
behind,
often
oh, I got
too.
goosebumps, behind everything that you are doing, and the embodiment of the energetics of the one. So that's something that I'm really, really excited to talk about, because I highly believe in everything that you're doing. And I resonate with the one because that's something that I am also embodying. But just seeing someone else do it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I need to bring in the podcast and we need to talk about everything about the one. How does one become the one? What does it mean? And the embodiment of the energetics of it.
Yes, yes, yes. This was something that I feel like I came home to now because I wanted and I desired to embody more of my gifts. So one of my biggest gifts that I know now that I see myself, now that I am visible to me, right? Who I was previously, I was afraid to look at myself, to see myself and my gifts, right? Like they felt so big that I was like, oh my gosh. And also, of course, there were the fears that came in, like what will people say? What will they judge? How will they judge me, etc. But I can feel very powerfully like another person in their energy field. And it's something that I'm continuing to really kind of hone in. I want to dive a little deeper into all of this for myself as like, like through learning through others. And I'm in the process of that. But it's something that I have as a gift to activate, to calibrate women's energy and to have them take action in a very soft space and like they feel safe. And for me, previously, I was afraid to hold that space. And even though I loved who I was then, it was a lot to do with like, okay, let's move, let's take action. But I didn't feel like it was like the safest space at that time, right? So a lot of time women will calibrate, they would activate themselves, but possibly they couldn't hold that energy, right? So then what they desired, they maybe got it, especially if we talk about through fitness, they received the weight loss, they received or the weight that has came off their body, they received the inches off, but they weren't able to hold it, powerfully. And for me, it's very important not to just give you a moment of time where you have this, but like I want this to be a moment that you live every single day, that that you get to hold that. And through it all, I have through the 2 years, I've really honed in to that alignment of the energetics, right? So that's also why I shifted my business from fitness to more of the energetics behind it, the mindset behind it, because I saw that it's like this is who you are, like you are the one, like it's on us to show us ourselves as the mirror that we are the one, right? And it takes so much discerning and it takes so much refinement within us because we are conditioned humans, right? From birth to now to wherever you are in this space listening to this, it's like we're very conditioned because our cultures, because of all different outside sources, so we forget about who our truest self is many times. So this is like a remembrance of you, of your sovereign self, of your sovereign soul. So for me, it's very important not to only activate and move women, but for also for them to feel the safeness and the closeness of themselves in the remembrance of who they are, right? So 2 years ago, I didn't hold both of these pieces together. And I feel like now I've come to this homecoming where it's like, yes, I am unapologetically really speaking of the energetics behind it and really what can shift and what shifts because sometimes again we focus so much on the outside that we forget how to nurture the within us and we forget to nurture our connection within us. So the connection that we hold is the one of our highest self.
And what is the relation? Because a lot of people are going to be a little confused with the one. What is the one? Because we are so accustomed to believe that the one is somebody else outside of us,
Exactly.
that it's a
Mm,
man if you're heterosexual or whatever your orientation is. But for me, it's like I've been raised thinking the one, I'm going to find the one. And all the freaking
mhm.
work that I did for myself unconsciously, I thought it was for me because I wanted to love myself. But there was this big unconscious reason that it was to find a man, to find the one,
Yes.
find the person. And when I shifted from that into like, wait, no, like I have to be the one, like I have to be the one. And I'm like, this is just like self-love, but it's like with a twist.
Yes. It's with a flare, it's with a fire, right? Because like when you say that you're the one, it has such fire. It has such like, oh, whoa, like, okay, you're the one. Like, who are you to say you are the one, right? In that energy, in that space, and being like, I am deserving to be the one for me, right? So for me, what dawned on me, I was actually at the beach in Florida, and this was like back in March, and I quickly move. I like as a manager, I move really, really fast, and like things just come to me very like quickly. But I also was silent for a little bit because I felt like there was a shift, and I just didn't know what it was back then. But I started like really noticing, and I started really kind of paying attention to like the one and others. Like others were talking about the one, but in the sense of like you being the one for others, correct? And like I remember too, culturally, it's like you got to go to school, you got to do XYZ in order for you to be for you to be open to receive the one that can come to you. And I'm like, wait a minute, wait a minute. And it started to not feel it just was like, no, this doesn't make sense. And I just kept looking and I kept watching, and I was like, this doesn't feel right, and this doesn't feel good, and this doesn't feel like something that no. And I was like, I want to do it differently, and I want to show others the energetics behind you actually saying like, fuck yes, I am the one. I am unapologetic about it. And this is where it came in. Like the one in you is calling upon the one is of everyone, like when you are the one, you also are calling others to be like their highest selves. And at the beach during this time, I was like, everything was in my mind. Like my mind goes, so in my mind, all of this was coming through, and I was like, yeah, like, and I was like, this is me speaking to myself. I speak to myself 24/7. But it was like, yeah, I don't do this for others. Like, I'm not doing this for others. Like, no, like they're no longer are for me. Like, especially like working out, like showing up, like the body, right? Like, I don't do it so I just look good naked for others, but I do it so I could look naked for myself. I don't do this business because of others, to fulfill others, but for myself. And it always came back to me, to me, to me. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm the one. And then at that beach, when my feet were in the sand, I was like feeling the water, everything. I was like, I am the one. And it felt like so expansive. And it was like the sun was rising, and I was just like, this is it. This is it. And then that's where I actually had a lot of my content drop. And I would go, we stayed there for 4 days, and every day I went to the beach in the morning on sunrise, and I wrote like content for hours just because I was like so tuned in to this energy. And that's where the up level came in, of not only focusing to be the one for others, but to be the one for yourself. And the energetics behind it is so powerful, and it's so unapologetic that it feels like, even like, ooh, it feels a little wrong, but it's so right, because you listen again over and over about the, like, you gotta be XYZ, you're gonna check off the boxes so the one shows up in your doorstep or whatever it is, right? And it's like, no, you already are the one. And then whoever is gonna be your match or whatever is going through your life, like it's gonna just show up just because you already are the one, you know it.
Mhm. How can someone, if like, let's say someone comes to you, how do you take them on a path back of this remembrance journey of being the one? And I think it's also like it ties to how did we even got disconnected from the one?
Because I feel like we got a disconnect because of we were shown that we got to do everything for like outside, like validation. Like I don't know, the word that's coming to me is like validation, like for outside validation, for outside expectations, to fit in other people's boxes, to do all these things. And like being the one is a remembrance of your own path, right? And like of your own soul's truth, right? This is like a truth that you're living as the one. So what I do and what I start with is I start with like, where are they right now in the current field in their life that is not allowing them to be the one in their life, right? Like I really focus on others' energy and I speak on like what's going on in your life that you know, you're not in your highest self at the current moment. And for example, let's actually give you an example of just what happened with one of my clients. And I asked her if I could talk about this, but it's like she was in a relationship for 3 years that just was not where she wanted. And she, she was like, if I feel like, it's not in the relationship that I want, but it is the relationship that I have currently, and it was like all this, like, not going anywhere, not moving forward, not moving backwards, but it was just like there. And I focus on reawakening the one at that moment. So I asked her, I was like, okay, if this was your highest self, if we're tapping into the one in you, would she actually stay in this relationship, or would she actually move, or would she actually, even create the steps? Like, I'm not telling you to leave that person, but it's like, would you create the steps? Would you have the conversation to make this into a better relationship or whatever it is? And she was like, I'm gonna think about it. And she moved really quickly. And at the end, she ended this relationship. And in other places in her life, she was also not doing her highest self. Like she wasn't showing up as that. So we did a reawakening for her of the one energy, of the focus on choosing herself, because this of the one energy is about you choosing yourself, about being unapologetic, on you choosing yourself, on you creating those standards, those values, like for you, like choosing you every single step of the way, no matter how it looks, right? For others, because you're doing it for yourself. So when we did that and we focused on that, she now has like interviews lined up that she was like, I don't even know how this occurred. She has like, she was speaking to me actually yesterday. She was celebrating with me. She has like also this, she's been on apartment hunting, and she's like, I don't even know how this apartment opened up, and it's opening up, and all these different things. And now she's like focused more on her health. She's focused more on herself. And she's like, this is a remembrance of my truth, right? And I'm like, it's always been there. It just, we needed to calibrate to that. We need to reawakening that. We need to reawaken like the fire within you for you to see that, and working with others is very different. Like each person is very different and how they are in their opening. A lot of you could be blocked at this time for a lot of stress that you're going through. So there might be different spaces, but it's always like a reawakening, reconnecting to the one in you, no matter where you are in your life. And then from there, we really focus on the energetics behind of what you're currently doing, so you can bridge the gap on what you are right now and where you want to go. So we can now be, in that space of like the present moment and become it today.
I love that. That sounds so powerful. It sounds so different too, that from a lot of things that are out there, or how people like, everything in the coaching industry right now. So I absolutely love the work that you're doing right now. It's so essential
Thank
for
you. Oh
women.
my gosh. I have like my heart is like beating so fast because talking about this like publicly is like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
And there's also like right now that you were speaking on this, like what came into my mind is like, you are Latina, I am Latina. We're like first generation Latinas here in the United States. And I don't know, you're from Colombia, I'm from Mexico. So
Mhm.
I don't know exactly your feminine lineage and the energetics behind them. But for me, it's always been codependency, women being codependent, self-sacrificing, putting
Yes.
themselves last,
Yes.
women married, they took care of the house, the kids,
Yes.
the cooking had to be done for the husband and all of that. And it's just been like a huge shift for me to be like, I don't want that. I don't want a marriage anymore. I don't want children. I don't want that. I just want to be in my own energy. I just want to be completely different than anyone else. So I'm like kind of like different and I guess a lot of
Yes.
the women in my lineage. And how has that played out for you? Like, what influence has your upbringing and being Colombian and being first generation? I guess your feminine lineage. I guess that's what I want to get into.
Yeah, that's such a good question. Oh my gosh, no one has asked me that before, which is so awesome, to think of. And thank you. Thank you for being mindful of that because no one has asked me that before, and I've done so many interviews previously, so that feels really good. But I have spoken about it. I have spoken about it because it all came to that. Like I'm at a point in my life now that I see so much, right? Like it's so visible to me now than when it was before, what it was before of, the threads that, that I am continuing to very lovingly and presently and intentionally shift. So when the lineage continues after me, we are in a different path of where we were. So for me, I feel like it wasn't wrong, right? From what I saw, like especially with my grandmother, for example, I've always given her as a big, big inspiration of not saying of what not to do, but of actually like of what can I do to love me more, right? So, for example, she always went into the space, and that's what she knew. It wasn't right or wrong. It's what she knew and what they learned and what they were taught and what to do, especially, being in a woman energy. So she sacrificed herself through so much, and at the end of her life, unfortunately, she was not even able to like walk. Like she ended up passing away in a hospital bed, not even being able to like actually lift herself up anymore. Like everything had to be done for her the last 2 3 years of her life because she wasn't able to move, and like most of her like limbs anymore because of all the self-sacrifice that she did for everyone, and I mean, I am so utterly grateful, because she supported so many, like she had 10 kids. But I have, a big family, and she was the most like self-loving woman, but she never knew how to actually choose herself through the process, because it wasn't something that was like shown, you
Yeah.
know? So when she went through everything that she went through health wise, and it was around 10 years of her lifetime, I was like, I cannot ever see this occurring again for me, but in my lineage, like I really want to live my life not only to the fullest and be like, oh, you only live once, but being in the space of like I want to shift this generational pattern that we hold because my mom was a lot like that, but she also began to see herself what occurred with my grandmother, for example, and she still has a lot of tendencies, but I feel like she's also moved away from it. But there's like so much of that, and there was a lot of shaming for myself behind the scenes about it, and it was something that I didn't really speak on a lot because it was hard for me to speak on it because I didn't know how to. I didn't know how to like have this conversation. And also, not a lot of people understand it in the sense of like who I speak to, and being and living in a foreign country like in America, being Colombian, it's very different, right? But for me, it was very important to really shift that, to really see myself as I was choosing myself, but also creating a space of not being selfish, but being self-full, right? So, like, for example, like in the beginning of this, it was a little selfish of me, of course, yes. But now that I no longer see it as selfish, but I see like I am full of myself, right? And this is the one energy in me of being full within me because I'm choosing myself and I get to shift my lineage because of it. Like, for example, I have cousins who are a little younger than I am, but they speak on the inspiration that I have created for them. And it really like fills my heart, and I'm like, again, doing this for myself, right? But they see it and they witness it and they also begin to see, like, hey, I do want to choose better. Hey, I know that I can do more for myself. How does that look like, right? So it has been a big shift I feel like, and the more that we continue to choose ourselves, the more we're able to give to others. And that was something that we were never taught. I don't know about if you know, if you feel that way, but I was never taught. Like, I never saw it. I never saw my grandmother be like, "Hey, I'm gonna go do my hair. I'm gonna have some time to myself." Like, what?
Oh
What?
no, my grandma would eat at last, and sometimes she wouldn't even eat because the food was gone by then. And I was not raised to, it's like it was with this concept, oh, you gotta know your worth and value. But I'm like, but how? Like, I don't know how. Teach me how. I
Mhm.
never learned how. I never learned how to love myself. That was just not conversations to
It
have.
was
There
a
was no
exactly
communication. It
no
was
communication.
no communication. I had to learn this in my 30s on my own
Mhm.
with through my own
Mhm.
self-discovery. And you did make a great point that they didn't know better. So like my grandma also, she was very self-sacrificing. She was the sweetest. There was a lot of love that flew through her.
So
Everybody
much.
loved her. Everybody loved being in the kitchen with her. That was the place to be in her home and everything. She also had like 12 children. And it was always like she also died, and somebody, like toward the last, I guess, 2 years, somebody had to take care of. And I have five cousins my age. They're all women, and they're the ones that ended up taking care of her toward her last days. I was already here and I couldn't go and say goodbye. So that's always there's been a lot of guilt that I couldn't go
Mhm.
to Mexico for to say goodbye. And, I came here when I was 14. So she passed away like after that. So there was also this kind of disconnect already from her from so many years that I was already here. But yeah, she didn't know better. She just did what she could, and everybody loved her. She loved everyone. And it's just been one of those journeys of like, I have to learn what I didn't learn growing up. I have to do it for
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel that, and thank you for sharing that story with me, because it was the same with me, like with my grandmother when she passed away, we weren't there either.
Yeah.
My mom actually, she was on her way, but she was a day late. So my grandmother passed a day before my mom arrived. And that was really hard. And I didn't say goodbye, but I knew every time I would go, it always felt like goodbye. And, and the last time that I saw her, I told her how much I loved her. And I felt it. I felt it within me. I felt it that I was like at a point in my life that there was going to be like a huge shift. I just, of course, I didn't, like I thought it was going to be the end of her life, and it was. And right after like a year, maybe even less, I actually became pregnant with Bear. So it was like it was a death with a rebirth, and I felt like I see so much of her through through Bear, through his actions. It's rather interesting. Sometimes I say that, it's not that it's incarnation or anything like that, but it's a lot of the love that I feel with him, that I feel for him. I had a lot of that with my grandmother. Her and I were very, very, very close. Even though I came to this country when I came to America, I was 7. We still were very close. And after I went through foster care, I have letters of her just saying like, like we got this, like your mom is gonna get you back, all these things, like the love never wavered. And that's also where I focus on being unwavering with myself, with like my love for me, because it's like if you can give all of this to others, right? The unwavering devotion, the commitment, why not also give it to us first, so we know what it is, so we know how it feels like, so we know when it is actually not like toxic, or when it actually is healing, you know and from that space, because we can love someone so much, like how I loved my grandmother, and it seems like you loved your grandmother so much as well. But of course, sometimes it comes with like, how can I say this? Hmm. Just closing my eyes, taking a moment to breathe. Just because it's a lot. It's a lot to unpack, especially with my grandmother. But
What
just feels so much of that. They could be like a like the holding of the connection that you get to have, you know. So it's like knowing how to do it for yourself first, so then you can give it to others. And I feel like our previous lineage was shown that love is outwards, you know, outside of them, when it was really within them, for them to see it in themselves and how they are loved, how they are, you know, joy themselves, so they can take care of themselves better, so they can actually be fuller of themselves and create experiences for themselves that maybe were not spoken of, you know, like they didn't have social media back then, etc., right? So it's like all these experiences, but they can create them and they can live them. And something that that it always got me, like always was this conversation with a previous mentor that I had, or that she had with us. And it was all around, you know, the last 7 minutes of your of your lifetime. Like you see that, like you see a reel, you see like a video right before um like your life ends and your soul, you know, comes one with the earth. And it was like, I want them to see, and I want myself to see how much I loved myself, but because I loved myself, I gave so much more to others, you know. And I really wish and I really hope that my grandmother was able to see how much her love for us changed myself, like changed me, and it got me to where I am today.
That's so beautiful. I feel like I don't know if you do this, but I meditate, I call upon like my ancestors, and she's the one that comes to my mind, my grandma. She's the
Yeah,
one
my
that comes
grandma's
to
always
my
with
mind.
me.
I've never told this to anyone because it's my own
That's
like
so
little ritual practice, but she's the one that comes forth like very strongly every single
That's so
time.
beautiful.
Hmm.
That's so beautiful. And I wish, you know, sometimes I do say I wish. So if I would have found this before, if I would have lived before, and I would have lived for longer times with my grandmother, and I would have spent all this time with my grandmother, and I wasn't this young, you know, like I I want to say I wish, you know, I she could have seen this and we could have, you know, been in this space of choosing ourselves together, you know, like. And I say that, and I truly mean that. Like I always say, like if I just was, you know, of course, saying I wish it, of course, it's like it's not gonna happen, but it's like it's something that you're like, if I was just older, if I was just there for longer with her, like. But you know, things occur the way they occurred. I maybe if I would have stayed in Colombia, I wouldn't be where I'm at today, you know. So I'm very grateful though. Like I always call upon her to come with me. Like she's always there. She was a big believer in God. Um, and I've shifted away from a lot of like the teachings that she had for herself and what she like was. But I also call upon God, my angels, universe is not only just, you know, like Mother Earth, not just God for me, but it's like multiple
Yeah.
beings. And I look at, she's always, I have her, what is this called? When you pray, oh my God, I'm
Your
forgetting. And
rosary.
it's like the rosary. Thank you. Yes. So I have her rosary with me. So I look at it every day and I touch it and I'm like, I know you're with me. Like I love you, and we're gonna have a great day. And that's how we do. And I haven't told anyone that either. But it's like I always think of like if anything happens to this car, whatever it is, I was like, that is the only one thing. It's like anything else, like that's the one thing that I want and I want to keep forever.
Yeah, I feel like they're always going to be such a big presence in our life, our grandmas. And then now we're taking on a whole different path of what the feminine lineage is going to be moving
Mm,
forward. And I said
yes,
this, like, I always say this, but I've said this like so many times to people. And it's like, we are the future ancestor. And like you're saying,
I
like
love that.
your little cousins are already looking up to you. I also have people looking up to me. And it's just this, it's kind of like the legacy that it's been building. And like you said, this last 7 minutes, and every time I think about it, I'm like, if I die today, like, do I even have a legacy? Is anyone even going to remember me? I know one person that will be very happy if I'm gone. I know that. And it's very painful to say that. But there's also like, is anyone going to remember me? And if they do, how are they going to remember me? And that's always like in my mind. And then with
Yes,
the transition that I'm going through right now, it's like I need to hurry up. Like, I want to hurry up, but I also need to trust the process and walk this
exactly.
journey at my pace.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. And this is where the softness comes in, right? And kind of change, like kind of gearing back to where we were talking about the one, where it really, it's like you were saying, like it feels like a softer opening, right? Because and it feels like a softness. There's a softness to it because it is, because it's a very devotional rising to your truth, to who you are, to your remembrance, right? And it's like, again, it's a remembrance. It's not an activation only, but it's like a remembrance of you, so you can be here, so you can do whatever you desire. But not only that, so you can live the life that you know that you can live. Like, because I always have this moment and I'm like, we have one lifetime, right? We are not on borrowed time, but you have to think of it like we just don't know when it's gonna end. We just don't know when our clock ends here. So it's like, will I be doing myself a this, like a, what is that called, a disfavor? No, a this, what is that word?
The service.
A, yes, thank you. I'm like this a disservice
Mhm.
to like not show up for myself, to not choose myself. Yes, I will be. Yes, I will. And like, for example, you're like, I'm at a space where like I don't want to get married again, right? And like you're no longer living life for the one that's a person outside of you, but it's the one within you, for you to be your own muse, for you to be your own energy, for you to be your own vibe and your own vibration to walk with and to be with and to experience with, right? Like you get to live and experience yourself as the one every single freaking day of your life when once you rediscover her. Like that's amazing. That's incredible because you get to walk in the lens of her because she is you,
Yeah.
right? So it's like you're speaking about your highest self, but at the same time, like you're walking together and it just one day and the embodiment just occurs and it's just like whoop, whoop, and it's an opening and it's like it's here, she's here and you're your high self. And then there was always going to be an evolution of your high self because that's who we are. We love evolution and we also got to allow ourselves to be in this present time. So it's like walking all of this is so beautiful. And you get to also witness others doing it for themselves, right? Like the legacy that I'm leaving behind is for others to see themselves as they are, as the one, for them to see that they are choosing themselves, that is the most selfful thing you can ever create for yourself, right? And there's so much more that I want to do. There's so much more that I want to create. There's so much more that I desire to have because I feel like, yes, I can have this, like I can have that. And it's no longer about, but I can't do this, but I can't do that. But it feels like because I am the one, there's just like no limits to what I can have, and there's no limits to what I can be. It's like for me, it's always being first, always, always, always like who I am in my truth and my remembrance. And yeah, like that's what it is. That's who we are, and because I used to doubt as well and be like, how will I be remembered? And how will others remember me? And like, will my legacy be left behind? Like, will they remember? And I'm like, no longer in a space of doubting it. So I know that you are in the space of where you are right now and in the process. And I feel it's because the process of where you're at right now. But remember and know and own that yes, you will be remembered for who you are. You will be remembered for you choosing yourself. You will be remembered for the shifts that you created in your lineage because they are not small feats. You decided to do this for yourself. You decided to do this for who's coming after you. And
Yeah.
that's huge.
The most important person for me to remember how to love herself, how to choose herself is my niece. She's 11 now.
Yes.
She's the eldest, so now I can have conversations with her. I have four little, they're nuggets, but they're younger. But she is the one that I'm like, if I leave today, will she remember that it's important to love herself, to put herself first, to choose herself, to not um to not think that she's not worthy or enough as she is, that she is. I tell her that so many times every single day. So she remembers it and she knows it. And there's times that
She knows it.
I caught her doing like videos and then she just talks about self-love. And for me, like I'm like, that's it. That's it. I could be
Yes,
gone and I'm good. I'm good. But there's like you say, there's so much more that I want to do. There's
there
so
is so
much
much
more.
more.
There's always so
There's
much
so much
more.
more.
And I actually want to say something. For me, loving myself and choosing myself, it was always, like I mentioned earlier, a means to an end. I was never enough for myself. And it's always focusing on being our best version, the growth and evolution, learning. And I took the focus from the present moment and acceptance and that softening and that surrender. And that was always like, it was always a means to an end. When I achieve this, when I get to this, when I, the body, the everything, the business, the money. And it was so exhausting. And I did have to pull myself back and I did have to go back to corporate and do so many other things as I was exhausted. I was burnt out. And now it's from this place of I love who I am, the foundation in the nothingness, not having the income, not having the success, not having so much, but then also loving exactly who the fuck I am.
Yes, and
Like
that's
that.
the powerful thing.
Yeah.
That's the beyond power, right? That's the beyond power that you get to witness yourself as the one in a
Mhm.
whole different light, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I obviously I understand, as we can tell, we have very similar connections and so many different threads in life, which is so
Yes.
beautiful. But the same thing occurred to me like 2 years ago, when before I came, no, after, sorry, after the slave movement, after our conversation, I was just like, this no longer lights me up. Like, like this no longer feels correct and this doesn't feel right to me. This no longer feels like my thing, my sole thing that I wanted and desired to do and continue doing. And it was always, a question of like, how will I receive the money that I need to receive because I have bills and I have a son and I have a family. Like, how will I do XYZ? And that's actually when I went back into like the workforce. I did full time and there was so much shame, there was so much guilt behind it. I actually had a 4 month hiatus right after that from everything. I just completely just sheltered myself and I just completely went invisible. And it was definitely in a sense hiding all of it, hiding myself, hiding all the pieces of me and everything that I was going through because I was just so I I don't want to say I was lost, but I was just so like in the nothingness of everything that it was just so confusing to me, and I was like, I can't confuse others too. Like, what's going on? But I knew there was a huge, huge breakthrough. And of course, I just didn't know when it was coming. It was just like, that's where really began to learn of the present moment, where I really began to see, like, I am so worthy and I am so deserving. I am so enough right now. And I began to really accept myself as I was then. And I was like, here I am, going back to the workforce for a very little pay. It wasn't like any, it was even less than what I was receiving when I was doing my personal training. But I couldn't give my energy to others. That was when I was at time, and it was a total different thing. Like going to deliver for Amazon. Like what? Super random. It was the most random thing in the world. But I did it because I needed it to be something that had nothing to do with anything that I did my whole lifetime. So I can actually hone into what the fuck was I doing with my life and with myself, and how can I hone in my own magic once again to feel revived. And I'm so thankful because I walked through that path, and that was like a delicious, incredible path. And, I'm still in the space where I'm building, I'm having this foundation for myself. And this is like, the one is a baby. It just like came to fruition. It just came to life. It just feels like I'm having a little baby again. So it feels like it's like a 3 month old baby, that I'm carrying around and I'm nurturing and nourishing every day. But it feels like it's an adult. It's like it's a weird concept. It just feels like it's all grown up already. And it feels so good because now I'm at a space where I'm also like doing podcast episodes, all these things, because I just know that this is where I'm meant to do. And I'm still working full time. I'm still doing full time, but I'm doing it in a very, very different way and different energy, where I actually have so much space and so much room to fulfill my passions of the one. And that's where I feel like I just continue calling in better and better opportunities because I am choosing myself, and I have continued to choose myself at every step of the way, even through the hardest moments, even when I was in food stamps, even when I was in, like, unemployed, even when I didn't even have money to pay for my bills, all these things and places and I was like, nope, I'm still choosing myself. I'm still choosing myself. How does that look like? I'm still choosing myself. And of course, through it all, I've learned so many things.
Yeah.
I've, learned to pivot in so many different ways. Sometimes very effortlessly, sometimes very not. But through it all, it's
Very
like
human
I've
moments.
exactly. But through it all, I'm still here and I'm still me and I'm still learning and I'm still doing it and I'm not giving up. And that's who the one is. She doesn't give up and she knows that, like, and that's the energy that we can live through every single day and can be with every day, like, because we're so resilient. We're so tenacious. We are so beyond powerful and unapologetic. It's on us to be now more unapologetic than we ever have. We just have to embrace it now.
Yeah.
That's all.
No, I love this because this gives a whole different perspective on choosing ourselves and wanting to be chosen from externally. And now it's like doing this for ourselves and even going back to corporate or going back to the workforce. That's still you bringing up your masculine energy because you got to provide, you got to
Yes.
support, you got to be your own support system, you got to be your own sugar daddy in a way, so it's like bringing up this fierceness, this feminine fierce energy. For me, that's my masculine is more like fierce, like my fears, and be like, hey, I have responsibilities, I have bills to pay, the
Yes.
money needs to come a certain way, and doing all those things that are in alignment that still allow you to do it all. But how do you do it all? Because you have a full-time job, you have a business that you're so present with, you have clients,
Yes.
you're also still into fitness, obviously, because
Yes.
fitness for you and I is a lifestyle. It's
Yeah,
something
it just
we do
really
because we love taking care
is.
of ourselves. And then you're a mom. Like, come on.
Correct. And I'm also a daughter, I'm also a
Yeah.
partner. It's like it's a lot of things. So I feel for me, it's been a learning process for sure. There have been times where I have not done it gracefully and effortlessly, and it's looked like shit, and it's felt like shit, and it's like been told it's shit. It's like, hey, you're not present, and XYZ. But I've learned through it all. Like my biggest things, I'm always open to change and I'm always open to like be like, okay, that was not the best way. All right, how did we learn from this today? How can I be better in this scenario? Not that how can I be better in other ways for me, like I'm not enough as I am today, but being like, okay, how can I actually choose better next time? Like this was not the best decision, Melissa. How can we choose better, right? So I feel like even through that, like this is why, I went from Amazon to where I'm actually working full time, which is like way over the income that I've carried in the last year and a half. But I saw myself in where I lived my life with the income that I had from Amazon, for example, which supported my family, but also allowed me and supported me in so many different ways. And I saw myself that like, you know, yes, 5,000, 10,000, $15,000, like it sounds great, it's amazing, but I could also live my life amazingly, gracefully, peacefully with the income that I held for a year and a half, right? And of course, now it was a soft opening, and I was like, okay, now this is where I want more. Okay, this is now where I want to do this XYZ. But for me, it was a lot of learning and a lot of listening, and it was a lot of asking for support and being open to it. But again, it's always in the line and in the light of me choosing myself, right? And choosing and having the hard conversations and not backing out. And it's gotten better and better and better every time. And I'm so thankful and I'm so grateful. And of course, there's still going to be little moments. There's still going to be a lot of that. Um, but I've done a lot of the pivoting very gracefully because of how much I've learned in the last almost 2 years now. Goodness, but almost in the 2 years now. And it's like all about you being open to it, you know, and no longer holding on to what we were taught that we had to be perfect, that it had to look good. Like, who said I was going to be good in the beginning? Like, it was not good. It was not graceful, you know, like it was hard. I had many days where I cried so much because I didn't see Bear enough, that I didn't see B enough. I didn't see my bubs enough. I didn't see my family enough. I didn't see my mom enough. I got it from others and all these things, you know, like, but through it all, I was like, you know what? I'm still choosing this. I'm still choosing myself. I'm still doing this in this space. I am like, that wasn't the energy back then of the one yet, but it was like the focus. It was like, no, like I am doing this. I am like, this is for me and this is for others. And this is still like, does it feel good? Does it not feel good? You know? And it's always been in the light of like, okay, this feels good or it doesn't feel good. So I feel like I only do it gracefully because I speak to myself so much and I've always been so conscious. And I want to say I've also been responsible if I'm not doing it right, if I have to say, like, if I'm saying sorry, like all of these pieces where so many of us have a harder time, you know, because we were taught that it has to be perfect, or we like right in out of the bat, like from the beginning, it has to be perfect, or you have to fit this box, or you have to be XYZ. And I was like, fuck the box, fuck all of this. Like, no, like I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm like just gracefully going through it and just seeing how it goes, and that's it.
That feels so good because a lot of people who are perfectionists, like I am a perfectionist, grew up with that. It's so good to just soften into it's okay to be chaotic, for it to be messy, for it to be
Yes.
imperfect, for you to fail,
Yes,
for
it
you to
was so
fail.
messy. It was so messy, right? And it was like, and I agree, right? Like I also come from a very perfectionist side of me of where it had to be perfect. And if for example, if a type like a plan didn't go, I would have a B, C, D, E, F, G plan because like I always had to make everything be like, okay, this didn't go, this is going to be the next thing. And I always would have things beyond what today was. But what I really did was like, okay, today, what is going on today? Like, how is today going to look for us, right? And if maybe it wasn't in the energy of what I wanted to bring, okay, how can I be a better version of myself tomorrow? So to what today I felt or what I went through or what others felt with my energy, how can we shift that, you know? And I noticed myself through it all. And through a lot of learnings, through a lot of hardships, through, you know, like I said, crying moments, all of that, it was like remaining present really made a huge difference for me of that opening for myself to no longer create different paths that I don't even know if they existed, you know, like this was the path that I was in and this is the path that I'm going and that's it. Like, let's see how it goes. Let's accept it right now and let's see. And it actually has allowed me to be more present with everyone around me. And I feel like that's where it shows like there's more gracefulness, right? And I feel like I no longer have that outside source of being like, you know, the likes and the loves and the blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, if I receive a client today, amazing, incredible. I love it. If I don't, then I don't, right? I no longer rely on any of that outside source. And that has been created because I actually have had a full-time position that has allowed me to just allow myself to just kind of lean back and be like, okay, this is what it's all about. And hell yeah, I want to be paid for building my business. Like, duh. Like, why not?
That's so good. And I something came up when you were talking about when I was saying about the perfectionism, like, and you were talking, and then something came up about because you and I are Latinas, and a lot of women that follow us will not understand the pressure of being first generation Latina in the United States and the American
Correct.
dream, and
Correct.
how there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of disappointment that happens when we don't see ourselves as achieving the American dream, especially because our parents, well, in my case, my parents sacrificed a lot for us to come here.
Yes, my mom
For
did
me
too.
not to have the American dream that they wanted and expected of me, and the pressure that carried with me since I came here, it was so much. And for me to now be like, that's not that's not what I want for my life. That I don't fit into the American dream. I don't want the American dream. And recently I came to the acceptance that I don't know if I want to get married again. I
Mm-hmm.
choosing not to have children at 39. That's been very, very hard for me to fully decide that in body, mind, and soul. I waver so much in that. And if I would regret it one day until I'm like, I just need to decide. I can't be like this on and off in that
Yes, yes.
position. I just have to say, no, I'm not going to have children and be okay with that. And realizing that I'm not going to have like I'm not going to fit into the American dream, and letting that go and be like, no, I am here to build my own path, to create my own path. And it has nothing to do with that. And it feels good to be a Latina doing that so others can see that.
Yes, yes. So, goodness, you have great questions to when it comes to this because it is true, like I followed the path. I went to school, I went to college, and I ultimately did what I wanted to do for so long. And it was like criminal justice and psychology. I graduated with a double major in it. Um, and just things happened in life the way that they occurred because it wasn't made for me. And it was like at a point in time, I was like, I'm gonna stop fighting this because it was true. The whole time it was like about the chase, about the body, especially about the body, right? The body, especially because we don't fit into the mold of what our body looks like. And it's very different
Yeah.
from what we see and what I saw when I was a little kid. Like when I was growing up in Colombia and then when I came here, the models that we saw, all of these things, especially growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, they were really, really, really skinny, really, really tiny, very, very long-legged women, which were incredible to witness. But at the same time, we didn't know what they were going through in the backstage, right? As they
Yeah.
were going through their own things, and we just saw that. And of course also being like, I don't want that, but also looking at Colombian, like for example for me, Colombian models and the
Mm.
bodies, and I'm like, but also I don't have that. And it was like always I never fit in. I never fit
Yeah.
in. It was like very hard for me as I grew up. I never fit in here, but I never fit there.
Yeah.
I wasn't Colombian enough. I wasn't American enough.
Mhm.
I was just me.
Yeah.
So I finally began to embrace that. And I was like, you know what? I'm just me. So whatever the fuck I do, it's just gonna be for me. Like I
Yeah.
no longer had that. And of course it's been a journey. It's been a journey, but like I now co-own a house, like a townhouse together, which I never saw myself doing. I now have a family, that I didn't know that it was going to occur when it occurred. It's like kind of like, I guess you call it delightful surprises in life, like finding also your person, that is the one for you while you being the one for yourself is a
Mhm.
big delight. But it was on years on years on years of me choosing myself and years of discerning what all of it meant to me, because the American dream is built on a lot of hustle. It's built on a lot of shaming. It's built on a lot of checking off boxes. It's built on a lot of debt, to be honest. It's built in a lot of debt through school and everything like that. And it was like, it was never enough when I was in psychology and criminal justice. It was like, oh, okay, like what else are you gonna do? And I'm like, wait, is this not enough? And it's like, oh no, you have to like now go into your master's, and after your master's you do doctorates, and after that you can, have more doctorates. And I'm like, what? And then you see the outside and it's like, but this is not what I want, and you start saying that. And for you to accept yourself where you are, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to accept today as it is and as it comes, and I'm going to be open to what it is and reconnect with myself. Like, how does it connecting with myself be? And then that's actually a lot of it too, like for me. And it's like, I'm building my own dream at my own time with my own people. Like, let's do this, like with my own, like brick by brick we're building this. together, and I don't know how it looks like. Do not ask me. Do not know what to call it, but it's like it's my dream. That's it. Like it is what it is, and it's gonna be amazing.
I love this. So this has been amazing. You and I can continue talking,
Yes.
and we will. You'll come back for the podcast
Yes.
again. So in the last episodes, this is going to be for season 3. I used to ask, "What is your truth?" But now it's like it shifted from that to the whole episode is your truth
Oh
instead of just
yes,
a
I
single
love that.
answer. So it's like you just told us your entire truth. But now the question that I want to start asking my guest or you specifically right now is what is something you will tell your inner child today?
Fucking doing it. You're fucking doing it.
Yeah.
Like you're fucking doing it. You're just fucking doing it. Like, oh man, I look at and every day I feel utterly grateful. Oh, you're gonna make me cry. Um, I feel utterly grateful because of what I went through as a child. And I don't know if I spoke on it on the last podcast episode, but I went through a lot of hardships, especially in a new country, not speaking the language. My mom, she really, sacrificed everything, and she also went through so much. And it's like we're doing it. We're fucking doing it. And it's like a moment where you're like, here you are, like you have this, and you get to actually marinate yourself in this joy that you feel, and you also know there's so much more coming just because you're so worthy of it. And when you're a little kid growing up and not seeing others choose themselves, not seeing especially women choose themselves, not seeing, not being seen, not seeing that you're seen, um, not seeing that you're understood, and not seeing that you are loved, to now coming full circle where you are loved, where you are deserving, where you are worthy, like you're fucking doing it. That's how it feels like.
I love this. This has been amazing. How you feeling?
It feels really good. It feels really good. It definitely feels
Mm.
like we spoke a lot more than I even thought. Not that I didn't want to. It was just like it was a lot more fluid and a lot more intuitive. And we hit so many different things that it was like I didn't even think that we were gonna hit this many things,
I
but it
told
feels
you,
so
yeah.
flowy.
I told you it was intuitive. I'm like, we're gonna start here
Yes.
and we'll see where we end up. And it's not where we had planned, kind of. But I don't
Yes.
like planning things because I like the fluidity, and then I like
Yes.
the how intuitive it is. And you say something and I'm like, oh, I gotta ask this question. And it's just it feels like a true conversation. Like we're just
I
having
love that.
coffee and having this conversation.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes. We're
I'm
having
so
all of it.
glad you accepted this and came back and had this beautiful conversation with us. Where can everyone find you? Everything is going to be in the show notes, but just let us know right now.
Yes, of course. Oh my gosh, yes, yes, yes. So please first follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook. You can also follow me on TikTok at Melissa Mejia Official. I am
Mhm.
just Melissa Mejia on Facebook. And if you desire to work with me, you're like, yes, it's a yes. Always, always on social media. I always talk about it first. But andsheisaofficial.com is my other space. And I also have a podcast that I'm currently rebranding, reworking, and everything, which is called the And She Is, the podcast. And you will be able to find baby Melissa in 2018 doing incredible, beautiful things
That's
on fitness, on
amazing.
nutrition. It's so fun. And I feel like I would love to have you as well. So we'll talk about that. But there's so much gratitude, for where I'm at. And just like, this is honestly just me just being courageous every day. Like, like this is not easy and it feels effortless, but it's not. I like right now, currently, I have all of these laundry that I have to that I have to fold in my bed right now currently. It's like a lot of things that they're pivoting and you're going through and you're moving with it, and it's the ease and the flows of life. So let's do this.
Well, I completely appreciate the space and the time and the effort. I know you have a busy lifestyle and I swear it does seem like you do it so effortlessly. I agree with people who have told you that. So thank you for showing up in this energy.
Thank you.
And I know like it looks effortlessly, but there's a lot of pieces that are moving
There's a
together.
lot of
But
intentionality
just
behind it.
the energy, you can feel the energy so effortless. So you're doing something very right.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for listening. I can't wait to just be you all in the world.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for being part of this conversation on the Feminine Truth Podcast. This podcast is for you, for me, for us, for the Feminine Collective. Thank you for spending your time and energy with us. I so appreciate it. Please, it would mean so much if you could share this in your Instagram stories, in your Facebook stories, or everywhere so this message gets spread and others can find this podcast and this conversation. And if you feel like someone needs to hear this message, please share with them. I would be so grateful for you, and let us know your thoughts, how this has helped you, how you connected with this topic, or how this has felt in your body. And lastly, if you feel the pull, I would be immensely grateful if you could take the time to leave a review so more people can find my podcast and this conversation. I'm sending you so much love, and I'll see you on the next episode.